Every year, hundreds, even thousands of new sales scripts, sales techniques, sales lines, objection handling phrases that you see online are created. But the problem is business owners and like the sales guys, they're not closing the deals as they should or as they were promised. Yeah. But what if I told you the magical key? It's been there for decades or for centuries. It's actually 2,500 years old. Yeah, and it's been in the library the whole time. Yeah. So in today's video, we'll go over the first principles, because this is what you need to know. The first principles. Everything in this world comes from the first principles. Every single successful person or a billionaire, if you are listening to the podcast, they say, I come back to the first principles. So by understanding the first principles, or by understanding the ancient sales system, you will never think about sales the same way again. Yeah. And you will never ever need the sales script. Yeah. You can just burn it. Yeah. You don't need it. Now, before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Arslan and I'm the founder of Socratic Sales. And the last few years, I've closed multi 4- and 5-figure deals internationally without using any sales scripts and helped hundreds of business owners with high-ticket offers to do the same just by using the Socratic Sales system. By understanding how humans think, how they make decisions, and how their brain works. Yeah. And the system was there. It's been there the whole time. And it wasn't, invented by me, or it was just rediscovered. Yeah. Now, let's start. Part 1. What's the problem with modern sales? Yeah. Let me show you, by the way, we're gonna be going over the 4 men. Yeah. I'll show you right now. Yeah. That pretty much shaped this ancient sales system. Yeah. And there's literally a lot of there are many caveats, and there are many other men, yeah, from the ancient history that literally they were teaching sales without teaching sales, pretty much. Yeah. Because it's all about humans, how they operate, the human nature. Yeah. So what's the problem with modern sales? How it works. You're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're selling high ticket offer. Okay, you wanna learn how to sell because maybe your closing rate is not good enough, or your prospects always give you these objections, or they just, they tell you I need to think about it and they ghost you. The problem with this sales training is they give you this magical script, yeah, as they present it. Okay, here's your script. Now you are just ready for everything, yeah? Now you can sell, you can do everything, yeah? Basically, let's say we have, I'm gonna draw it. We have sales guy 1. So, where's that? We have sales guy 1. We have sales guy number 2, yeah? 1, 2. And the first guy is just, okay, he has the script, or the business owner. He has the script, he knows what to do. Okay, he's ready, yeah? Because whatever objection the prospect will give them, or will tell them, like, they have they have the weapon, so they know what to say in advance. So what he does, he's basically presenting the features, following the script, asking these questions that he has in the script, and talks, yeah, and the prospect listens politely, and then by the end of the call, they just tell them, oh, I need to think about it. Now, the prospect number two doesn't have any script, yeah, he's just formless. So, but what he does is, he's asking questions that are personalized, he adapted. And the first guy, he was talking for 20 minutes, presenting for 20 minutes, features and everything. The second guy just shut up, yeah, and he just listened. Yeah, he's listening. That's the it's extreme difference, yeah. He was just listening all the time. So the first guy was talking for 20 minutes, the other guy was listening for 20 minutes. Yeah. Now, he was presenting everything the same way. They had the same offer, absolutely the same service, the pricing. During the presentation, he was actually having a dialogue. He was having a conversation. You know these presentations when someone's just presenting, you're just, okay, nodding your head, and then, okay, makes sense, yes. But are you actually paying attention? Are you aware? But what if someone is asking you a question and now you are participating in this presentation? Now you're listening, you have to understand, you are actually trying to, implement these ideas into your own business. You're visualizing how these ideas could potentially work in your business. Because the second guy is asking questions even during the presentation. Now this is a very, this is just in a nutshell, yeah, that's very deep, it goes very deep. But part 2, hidden thread, yeah. So the point is, we have pretty much, like as I mentioned, yeah, we have 4 men that we're gonna be going over that taught me sales pretty much, yeah. Just because of them, I was able to change my life, my relationships, my communication, everything, yeah. Because just everything in life is sales. Whatever you do, it's all about human interaction. It's all about dealing with people. It's all about understanding people. Yeah, it's all about reading people to get what you want from this life. Yeah. So that's the hidden thread, yeah? 4 completely different men, 4 completely different, personalities, 4 completely different centuries, everything, yeah? Now, every single one of them, yeah, complements each other. But all of them, they have many things in common, yeah? So let's dive into that, yeah? So the principle is like, we have, let's start, yeah? Let's start with the first one. So, before we start, yeah, you have to always remember, you cannot force a human being to change their mind. You can only create the conditions for them to change it themselves, yeah? This is what they have in common, yeah? It's not about convincing. It's not about selling, yeah? So the idea is, the sales guy number 1 is trying to sell. The sales guy number 2 is trying to understand. Yeah? Again, the sales guy number 1 is not selling, is selling. The sales guy number 2 is not selling, tries to understand. Yeah, he's listening to understand, not to respond. So every single one of them is not trying to force a human being, because you can't really force because of the ego. Yeah, everyone has an ego. You can't win this battle against the ego, because they'll just leave the call, they'll just ghost you. Yeah. Now, part 3. Let's start with the first one, Socrates, the power of not knowing. Yeah. Now, let's go to Athens, 470 BC. Yeah. Now, the man is just barefoot, walking around, and just the story is like this. Yeah. He basically, every person he's talking to, he never convinces anyone, and he was just asking questions. And these people, for some reason, they were just convinced by his ideas, but he didn't even try to convince them. Yeah, they all believed what he was saying. So, and one friend of him, yeah, he basically like went to the oracle. Yeah. And the oracle, at that time, it was like the wisest woman, yeah. And basically, the friend asked, okay, who is the wisest man alive, yeah? And she said it was Socrates. And then the friend told Socrates about that, and then Socrates didn't believe that he was the wisest man alive. So what he did, he just went and asked politicians, craftsmen, different lawyers. He just asked them, okay, like literally, who basically he asked them basically about this statement, whether he is the wisest man alive or anything. Yeah. And then they started having conversations, basically, and what he did is he asked about their beliefs. He asked about their beliefs, and they started basically explaining themselves, and they told him, okay, this is because of X, because of Z, because of that, because we know that. Yeah. So they were so, you could say, ignorant, that they just, okay, this is because of that. Yeah. Like, without even being open-minded and asking, themselves, is that actually true or not? So all of them, they were 100% sure and convinced in everything they say. And then Socrates thought, okay, every single one of them knew everything. Yeah. Like literally they knew everything. And the problem is, he didn't think of like he thought that knowing everything is not the way to grow. So he actually, okay, then he thought, okay, I actually don't know anything. Yeah. I don't know everything. Yeah. And that's actually made him the wisest man alive. So now you think, now wait, how is that related to sales, and why you're telling this story? Yeah. Like, when you are on a sales call, yeah, and let's say you have a script, yeah, and okay, I'm going to ask this, I'm going to ask that. You're going to get the same output or the same outcome because you're asking the same questions or you're following the script, yeah? Now, what if you join the call, you go on a sales meeting, and you know that you know nothing. Yeah, literally. I know that I know nothing. And this is true. Do you know anything about your prospect? Like really before the real sales call about their business? That's the whole purpose of the sales call. Yeah. But many salespeople, yeah, I've reviewed many sales calls. They have this scripted, basically specific lines or specific framework that they're following, and it should be like, okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. But life isn't A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. Life is always, sometimes it starts with B or with D, and then A. Yeah. Like there's no sequence. Like the only one sequence that you should know is obviously we have discovery, presentation, negotiations. That's it. You don't need any frameworks. Yeah, that's the whole thing. You should focus on the process. Yeah, not on the frameworks or anything. And the process contains these principles, the first principles. Yeah, and one of them is from Socrates. Now, you join the call and you know that you know nothing. Yeah, I know that I know nothing. So what happens if you know that you know nothing? You're being curious as a child. Because as a child, we know nothing. Yeah? So we are always asking questions to understand something. Yeah? This way you create this curiosity. And then when you prospect, or when even any communication, any conversation, what people want, they want to be heard. They love to be heard. Yeah. When you're listening to them. Yeah. This is how you build rapport. You don't need any script. Yeah. Because you are just listening to them and asking questions based on the information that they're giving you, based on their even body language. You're analyzing everything. But they feel that you're not actually interested in them if you are just, everything, okay, maybe you know the market, but it's not enough, because yes, the market, you can generalize the problem, but every single business owner has a specific problem to them. Maybe even personally connected problem. Yeah, you never know. Be curious. Yeah. It's like in a chess game. Yeah. Can you imagine? Okay, I assume that you know how to play chess. Yeah. You learn the opening, and opening is pretty much the theory. Yeah. Every single person is learning the theory, the moves, but they do not focus. They do not take into consideration that everything can go absolutely different direction. And what you're gonna do in this case, you're just following the same sequence, but you're not analyzing what your opponent does. So we have next. You're interested in closing them. Yeah, that's another thing. You're thinking about the game. You're thinking about the basically. Okay, you're thinking about the close. You're thinking about the outcome, but the outcome is not within your control. Yeah, that's what you have to always remember. That's the sales philosophy. Outcome is not within our control. Yeah. But what's within our control is how we conduct the sales call, how we communicate, everything. That every single part of the sales process is within our control, the process, but not the outcome. If you're joining the call with the thought, oh, I have to close, I have to get the money, then they'll feel that you're desperate. Yeah, and we'll go over that now in the next one. And just imagine that, for example, doctor. You're going to a doctor, and the doctor number one again asks you, No, he just asks you some general questions and then prescribes you, okay, this is your painkiller, take this, everything will be fine. Now, what are you gonna think about this doctor? Yeah, like you will think, are you gonna come back? Probably not. The second doctor, he just listens. Yeah, he's looking at you, asking you question, asking you questions, trying to understand you, and genuinely being curious. Genuinely being curious and trying to, because when you're going to a doctor, you still want to feel understood and, again, you need help. That's why you booked an appointment with them. The same way on a sales call. Every single business owner that joined your sales call, it's either pain, desire, or problem. Yeah. They may say, oh, I don't have any problems, everything is fine. I'm just looking what you have. But what's the point? What's the point of looking at what you have if everything is fine? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So they still want to optimize something. They have desire to grow. Yeah. Or maybe the specific part of their business is not doing so well, but in general, the business is going well, but this part is weak. Now they could say, oh, we don't have any problems, everything is fine, but it's still pain, desire, problem. Yeah. Now you may ask me, okay, what is the difference between pain and desire, pain and problem? Yeah. In this case, pain is, let's say, for example, they're not making enough cash, yeah? Not enough. Problem is maybe they're running ads, but it doesn't work properly, yeah? So it's a problem specific, it's a specific problem, yeah? That is holding them back. Pain is like just in general, yeah, for example, they're not making money, they need money, or they have specific expectations or goals, yeah? And they, for example, they haven't reached the goal the last year, that's a pain point, yeah? Now, to summarize, walk in knowing nothing. Yeah? Walk in knowing nothing. Do not assume anything. Yeah? That's very important. Yeah? And probably you've heard that before. Do not assume anything about your prospect, about their problems, about their business. Let them talk. Listen. Actively listen. And there's actually a huge difference between listening and active listening. Yeah. Now, do not assume anything. Be curious as a child. Yeah. Now, ask questions. Socrates, it's been asking questions. He never convinced anyone. That's the whole point. That's why I call it Socratic Sales. Yeah, because it's literally well-known Socratic method. Many therapists use that. Yeah, with their patients, because they're asking questions and trying to understand without judging, without convincing, without telling them what to do. You can't tell your prospects what to do. Yes, maybe they're doing some, they're doing some BS stuff, and you know that, but you have to ask questions so they can come to this conclusion themselves. Socratic sales, again, that's why I call it Socratic sales. You do not sell, you do not convince, you trying to understand, and they will convince themselves. They will sell themselves. Yeah, that's the whole point. You don't even need to sell. You're selling without selling. That's the Socratic sales. Asking questions so they can convince themselves. Because this is the only way to work with their, with their ego or with their specific beliefs. Because after that, they will have this cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a psychological term when you have two beliefs that conflict with each other. But that's another topic. Yeah, and now they'll have to choose between one or two, or second one, yeah? And listen to understand, not to respond. Yeah? Do not have any thoughts. Do not have any questions that are ready, basically. You have these questions, you're listening, boom. And you are not listening anymore because you have this question in your mind that you want to ask now. But no, just listen, and your brain will just instantly give you different ideas. Yeah? If you're listening, maybe okay, you have this question in your mind and you stop listening, but if you would have listened everything, you could have created 3 or 4 or 5 questions from this. Yeah? Your brain is a superpower. It's a super machine, and it's your natural superpower. Yeah, and you will not forget anything. Just listen, actively listen. Yeah, that's the 3 principles that we could learn from Socrates. Yeah, and everything is applied. You can apply literally right now. You can apply this to your sales calls or to your sales meetings. It's so valuable. It is crazy, yeah? Now, part 4, we have Machiavelli. Niccolo Machiavelli. Notorious man, maybe you've heard about him. And Socrates gave us the philosophy and the method, yeah? But he didn't give us the power principles. That's the thing. Yeah? He didn't give us the power principles. And this guy, this man, this gentleman, he actually, he showed us the human nature at its basically most raw and honest level as possible. His book, The Prince, was literally banned, yeah, by the Catholic Church. Because, and we're not talking about, manipulation or anything. Yeah, that's his ideas are literally the real truth that everyone is trying to hide for some reason. Yeah. No person, no human being is perfect. Yeah. And all this Disney fairy tales about people being so, socially, so to say, socially good or socially acceptable, or those people who are always trying to be liked or trying to fit in or always trying to please. Do you really believe? Do you really trust them? Yeah? You know these people who are always trying to be liked, who are always smiling. Do you trust them? Or do you trust an asshole who is just very honest with you, but trying to help you and giving you feedback, as you, for example? I mean, we're not trying to be assholes on the sales call, yeah. It's not about that, but the idea is 16th century Italy. He's just ruthlessly honest, and this understanding of human beings that basically how they actually work, how they function. That's the beauty of it, yeah? Because he's being honest. There's no light without dark. There's no sun without, basically there's no like night without day. You know what I mean, yeah? It's like just yin and yang. You can't just say, oh, this is so evil, this is so bad. Like, people operate like this, subconsciously or consciously. Yeah. And again, we're not talking about manipulation or anything or deception. This is actually a misconception about Machiavelli and his work. It's not about that. Yeah. People just look at the surface level. They're not trying to understand his ideas. And basically, honestly, these two gentlemen, Socrates and Machiavelli, they just taught me so much in sales that my closing rate just skyrocketed. Yeah, and I'm not even joking. Yeah. So, and the thing is, even 500 years later, world leaders, CEOs, they still study his work. Yeah, politicians. I'm telling you, every single one of them, they study. Yeah. This is probably the first book that they read, that they've read, about the politics or about the power. Now, you may ask, okay, are you talking about manipulation on a sales call, on a sales meeting? No. Yeah? No. It's not about that again. Yeah? So everything Machiavelli wrote, for example, in The Prince, it's just a masterclass in sales psychology. Yeah. Again, not manipulation, not deception, a ruthlessly honest understanding of how human beings actually work. Yeah. And now let me give you 3 principles, Machiavellian principles, that it's gonna just change your sales game. Yeah. Very important. Now, people judge by perception, not reality. Yeah. So men in general judge more by their eyes than by their hands. That's what he said. Now, if you think about it, on a sales call, they don't know about you. They don't know about your company. They don't know anything about you. Let's say you cold call them, yeah? Like, for example, I did that. I cold called many hundreds, even thousands of businesses per day, yeah? Internationally. And now, or you maybe cold emailed them, or maybe you cold DM'd them and joined the meeting. Now, they will trust their perception, yeah? They will trust how do you present yourself. And many people say, oh, don't judge a book by its cover. No, that's absolute BS. Every single person, every single human being judges. That's how we survived. Because if he wouldn't have judged, then we wouldn't have understood what's the danger, or where like, is that person, or is that, animal, or is that environment dangerous for us. Yeah. So, and actually we judge, like, I think it's 0.1, I think it's 10 milliseconds. Yeah. There was a study, literally. Yeah. Like, without even knowing the person, you already judge the person. Yeah. And you already form an opinion about this person. Crazy. Yeah. So you join a sales call. What's very important in every single conversation, whether it's sales or just normal conversation? It's the framing. How do you frame? Yeah. How do they perceive you during this conversation? And many different small details shape the perception about you. Yeah. It's body language, your tonality, the way how your verbal, non-verbal cues, everything. Many different small details. Yeah. And also your competence, of course. Now, the second one, respect is more powerful than likability. It's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Now, if they hate you, they will not buy from you. Yeah. So it's not about that. Yeah. They will not buy from you. But they may not like you, or they may not love you, let's say. But okay, you may be an asshole. This guy is an asshole, but he's so competent. Because business owners, they don't care whether you are, whether you're trying to please them or you're smiling all the time, this fakeness. No, they need a solution. And if they see that you can solve the problem, let's go. Yeah? Even if you're an asshole, yeah? But you're a competent asshole. That's the important thing. Again, it's not about being hated. It's not about being an asshole again, yeah? It's just, you don't need to be liked to sell. Or you don't even need to be liked in general. Yeah? These people who always try to please everyone, yeah, it's just yes to everyone, and just most of the time they are very agreeable and they can't just, yeah, it's just these people are, most of the time, the world is just using them. Yeah, but that's another topic again. Now, never need yes. You're not needy. You don't need the sale. You're not desperate for the clothes. You're not desperate for the money. Because you don't control that. But can you imagine the sales guy or this business owner joining the call and, I need to close this deal. I need to close that deal. I have to close. I need this cash. They will feel that. Yeah, they will feel your desperation. They will feel that maybe you are not abundant. But these guys, or these people who are abundant, you can feel that aura. Because okay, if you don't like me, that's fine. If you don't want to go with us, that's fine. Yeah. Obviously, we'll try, it's not about being, just very passive. It's just about mentally or mindset wise, not being desperate, not, thinking that, okay, I must sell, I must get this client, I must sign this client. It's not, that's the whole idea. Yeah. The aura that you radiate, because it is real. Your personal magnetism is real. Yeah, that's actually a very huge topic. But never need yes. You don't need the cash. You're not desperate. Yeah, you just move on, and that's fine. Okay, you tried everything. You tried to you focused on the process, not the outcome, not the yes or no. The process, being as competent as possible, helping them as much as possible, understanding their business as much as possible, asking good questions, listening, framing, market expertise, many different, processes that we have. Now, next, we have Sun Tzu, the strategy principles. Now, ancient China, 500 BC. Sun Tzu said that you can win the wars without fighting. Now, what does it mean in the sales context? Now, if you're trying to fight, basically, again, it is connected to the Machiavellian principle. You're trying to force the win. You're trying to force, but you can actually win the battle without fighting. How? By asking questions. You're not trying to handle objections by force. Let's say they said, I need to think about it, it's too expensive. You're asking questions. You're letting them persuade themselves. That's the one way of looking at this. Now, another thing what he said is pretty much, he said the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Yeah, that's what we discussed right now. Now, the water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. Yeah? Being formless. Oh my God. That's so important. Adapting, being formless. Bruce Lee said that. Become water, become the cup. Sun Tzu says that. Yeah? Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground. In the chess game again, you're adapting because they could, there are many different moves and ways. You can't script the whole game. You can't script the whole sales call. And you don't need it because you're adapting. Charles Darwin said, it's not the species, it's not the strongest species or the fastest species that survive, but the species who can adapt. Think about it. It's just the number one rule that every single business owner who wants to close more high-ticket deals, or a sales guy who wants to close more high-ticket deals, has to know. Not the scripts, say this, say that. When they say X, say Z, when they say I need to think about it, say this. No, it doesn't work because every single conversation is different. Every single person is different. Different archetypes, different reactions, different emotions during the sales call. Because you don't know what is going on in their life. They could have different emotions at this point. Yeah? Because business is the reflection of the business owner. And if the business owner has problems, then yeah, it will reflect. And the third principle is know yourself and know your enemy, and you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Yeah. Knowing yourself, knowing how you react or how you behave during the sales call, being present, because sometimes you get emotional, yeah, especially when you are, let's say when you're desperate, you are emotional because you are, in some sense, you're greedy, and greed is an emotion. Yeah, or maybe you have fear of not closing. It's an emotion. Again, emotional intelligence, that's called. Yeah, emotional intelligence. EQ. That's actually the main idea of this. And your enemy, again, it's about analyzing, understanding the market expertise. Let's say sales guy or business number one, let's say agency, yeah? Up. Yeah. Okay. Let's say number one, number two, one guy is great at marketing. They're just so good. They have 20 years experience, hundreds of testimonials. The second guys, or the second business, or let's say marketing agency, they're great at marketing, maybe not as great as the first, but they're good. They have testimonials, they have case studies, they have everything. Yeah, they have, like, let's say 5 years to 10 years. But the second guy understands, let's say, the real estate market, like literally, like the business owner of this marketing agency could become a realtor if he wanted to. Understands the terms, understands like the market, yeah, the caveats, the prices, average listing prices, everything. And the first guy is just good at marketing, but doesn't really into the market specifically, yeah? Now, who would you work with as a realtor? Who would you trust? The guy who just in general is good at marketing, has expertise, or the guy who understands the market that this realtor is in? Yeah. And basically, yeah, I was drawing here, probably you haven't seen that, but now you see it. Yeah, great. So yeah, of course you will trust the second one, because they're just on the same wave with you. Yeah. And this is the point, know your enemy. But it's not just about that, it's also about, again, actively listening, understanding the person, the prospect himself, understanding like, who is this guy, the emotions, yeah? And you don't need to fear like the result, whatever happens, yeah? Because again, if we come back, we're not desperate. We never need the yes, yeah? And honestly, as soon as I stopped thinking about getting the money, closing the deal, I just felt so calm and chill, and I was so focused on the process, actually understanding the business owner, their business, and understanding their problems and trying to help them. Yeah. And it's just, first of all, the outcome is not controlling me, yeah? And also I'm aware that I cannot control the outcome, but I'm aware of what I can control. And this way, your competence during the sales call will just skyrocket, yeah? Now we have the fourth gentleman, Aristotle. 350 BC, Athens. Now, his idea was literally ethos, pathos, logos. On a sales call, when you think about it, we have, we could potentially see it as, okay, first we have logos, pathos, ethos, pathos, logos as a sequence. Now, first of all, what is ethos? Ethos is literally the credibility, yeah? How do you create credibility? Again, how do you build rapport? By, shaping the perception of you, yeah? By being competent, the first impression, by showing your market expertise, that you understand, yeah, what you're talking about. You could say many, using smart words, but if they think or if they feel that, okay, but is this guy actually competent or not? Yeah? Maybe they're not, let's say when they talk about the market, the real estate market, and they're not quite sure about that, a little bit not so confident. Of course it's gonna reflect on the sales call, yeah? Because you can feel that, yeah? You can feel that, yeah? So that's why before that, like the Sun Tzu said, you can win the battles even before the war or without fighting. You have to do the market research. You have to understand what the market that you're selling to. Let's say you're in AI, you have AI business. I have to turn off my phone. Okay. So you have AI business and you created a software for the specific target audience. Now you have to understand the market. Who is your target avatar? Who are you talking to? Yeah. Now, pathos is emotion. Yeah. Again, emotion, asking questions, understanding their pain, desires, problems. Logos is the logic. And again, people do not operate, like 95% of the time, they operate through the emotions. Everything is filtered through the emotions most of the time because of the amygdala in the brain, yeah? And we'll go over that, yeah? But the idea is literally, yeah, the same way. Like the system is, it works like this, yeah? You are in pathos, let's say, in pathos, you're asking questions. Okay, what have you tried? How long have you been doing that? Or what happens, for example, if you do not implement this and this and that system, yeah? What's the consequence? Emotion, pain, yeah? You're activating emotions. They feel the cost of inaction, let's say, yeah? And everything is established, yeah, for example, credibility, but it shouldn't be like the sequence, yeah? People say that, okay, it's first ethos, pathos, and logos. You can follow this sequence, but sometimes, you have to adapt again, yeah? And the logos, again, is the logic, and logic will justify the pathos. The logos will justify the pathos. That's how we operate. We buy something emotionally, and then we justify why is it good. And the logos happens when you're presenting your service during the presentation, because we have simple, yeah, again, no framework, no fancy stuff. Simplicity is the genius, as Einstein said, yeah. Also, Richard Feynman. Everything should be simple, and you should be able to explain that very simple. Discovery, presentation, negotiations. That's your sales training. Basically your sales theory or sales course, whatever. Yeah, that's it. Everything else is the first principles. And these first principles will just transform your life in general. Because, again, everything in life is sales. Whatever we do, whoever we communicate with, everything that we get from this life is through communication and dealing with people. And if you can deal with people, it's a superpower. It's crazy. It's a cheat code in life. Yeah? It's changed my life. Completely changed my life. Yeah? Now, 4 gentlemen, complete system in action. Yeah? So, we have, before the call, Sun Tzu. Yeah? Know yourself, know your enemy, know your weak points as well. Yeah? Know yourself. Yeah? Your enemy. Obviously, our prospect is not our enemy, but you get the point. And we have, yeah, and your weaknesses pretty much, yeah? Understanding. Research the research the market, understand their world, understand the niche, and every battle is won before it is fought, pretty much, yeah? The preparation is important, yeah, but not the scripted way of thinking about it, yeah? We come in without knowing anything about the prospect specifically, but obviously we have to understand the market that we are selling in, yeah? Now, discovery, Socrates, yeah? Socrates, hope you can read it, yeah? Now, Socrates, tell me what's going on, how is it going, yeah? Can you elaborate on that? Oh, why do you think so? Oh, what do you mean by this exactly? Just being Socrates. Just being Socrates. Why, and why? Obviously, we're not gonna ask why many times because it feels like an interview, yeah? But you get the point. You can always rephrase asking open-ended questions. And just being Socrates. No script, no agenda. just being curious. Next, Aristotle. Yeah, Aristotle's ethos. Yeah, specifically. Let's do it this way. Third one. Yeah, Aristotle's ethos. Now, again, during the sales call, subtly show them that you understand the market by using their words, by asking questions that are specific to their market. Fourth, we have now obviously Aristotle's pathos. Yeah, again, in this case, yeah, it is the sequence, yeah, but again, adapt, yeah, being able to adapt. That's when you will survive, yeah, on every single sales call, everywhere. Pathos plus Socrates. Why? Because you're just asking open-ended questions, you're going deeper, and you're trying to activate their emotions, yeah? Because you have to understand the pain. And when you are asking questions about their pain or desire, their brain will release some chemicals that will activate the emotions, yeah? Now, we have also throughout, I would say, yeah, throughout the, we have pathos, yeah, then we have Aristotle's logos, it is presentation, yeah, and then we have Machiavellian principles. I mean, they work everywhere, but Machiavellian principles, for example, when they give you objection and let's say they push back, you don't react. They give you objections, you don't react. You asking questions calmly. They say that it's too expensive. You do not justify the pricing. They question you. You do not justify your existence. You're being calm. You know that it works. Yeah, framing, the perception. Yeah, and that's it. And then you close the deal. You basically, again, we have here Sun Tzu plus Machiavelli. So you say the price, again, you shut up. Maybe they give you some objections. First of all, you shut up, you let the silence do the work. Yeah. You formless, if they're giving you objections, you're adapting depending on the objection or depending on the, you have to take into the consideration the information throughout the whole sales call that you got from them. And then with that basically leverage, because as business owners who sell, the only leverage that we have is the information. Yeah. So being formless, adapt to whatever comes, and you close the deal. Yeah. Again, objection, Socrates. Again, we close this with Socrates. Whatever second objection, third objection, you're questioning. Yeah. Because you can't handle any objection without understanding the root cause of that objection. Yeah. And most of the time they just they don't trust you. Yeah. That's why they're just giving you some, you could say, smoke screen objections. Yeah. But why this works? Yeah. Let's look at this. Why this works? Like, you have to understand that you basically, as Sun Tzu, yeah, we're not trying to memorize what we're gonna do next, what's our next move. of course, we thinking about the next move when the opponent makes his next move. Yeah. So after that, we will adapt, and maybe we will change our strategy. Maybe we will change the whole strategy. Maybe we were calculating 5 minutes our strategy, and then boom, opponent does this, and now we have to adapt, and then this strategy just doesn't work anymore. Yeah. So, and as we discussed with the with this methods, yeah, with basically with the first principles of these four gentlemen, you let them handle their own objections. You let them sell themselves. You let them convince themselves. Yeah, we're not selling. We're just trying to understand. That's it. And why this works, the neuroscience behind this is Joseph Ledoux. Yeah, he researched that when we, as I said, the framing, how it works, we shape the perception, yeah, of the person or of anything, yeah, and it's literally there's a amygdala that's called amygdala, yeah. So this is here, as you see, this part, this is amygdala, and this is literally this is must know for every single business owner or sales person, whoever is selling, yeah, this is must know. If you never heard about it, yeah, this is literally why people buy, yeah. I mean, again, the brain is very complex, yeah, but if I would say very simple, yeah, again, we have reptilian brain, yeah, so it's around here, reptilian brain. We have limbic system and have neocortex, like the smart brain. Reptilian brain is fight or flight or freeze. Amygdala is pretty much the emotional part of it, and neocortex is the smart brain. Yeah, but 95% of the decisions are made through the amygdala. So it's processed and filtered through the amygdala. That's how it works. So you see, if we look at this graph, or we have, you see, so we look at the person, your prospect joined the sales call. Now it goes to the limbic system thalamus, yeah, which is also pretty much the part of the limbic system that is basically the information goes to the amygdala, and then it goes to the pretty much the smart brain, yeah, the neocortex. So only small part is processed through the neocortex. You know this feeling when you did something and then you regret about it because you were emotional. Because probably 99% or even 100% of the information or of the information were filtered through the amygdala, and it didn't even go to the neocortex. Yeah, so it wasn't even processed properly through neocortex because you were emotional at this point. Yeah, that's why emotional intelligence is very important, not just in sales but in life in general. And basically the amygdala fires first. It makes a judgment, yeah, and safe or threat, trust or danger, and before it's literally creating a judgment about you. This is why your presence matters. This is why like certainty closes more deals than features. Presence is more important than your pitch. This is why silence is more powerful than justification. Yeah. And another thing is neuroscience, for example, neuroscience also, if we want to confirm the four gentlemen by neuroscience, Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner, he developed this concept of system 1 and system 2 that basically, again, it is connected to the brain if we think about it, to the Joseph Ledoux's concept of the amygdala. Intuition, most of the time we operate on the system 1. It is automatic. We do not need to think. It's just simple and doesn't require any cognitive, energy. System 2 is rational thinking, 5%. We have to think, we have to stop. So when you learn how to drive, first you use the system 2. Now you're using system 1 because you don't need to think. For example, if you are driving manually, now you don't need to think about it now because it's automatic. You're driving by intuition, you could say, yeah. You don't need to think. But when you were learning, you had to learn it actively. Yeah, this is how it works. So the idea is, on a sales call, they're gonna be, most of the time they'll decide on the system 1. Yeah, through the system 1, because it's fast, it doesn't require. But in order for them to decide with system 1 and make it easy and intuitively, so they're intuitively confident that, okay, this is the solution, this is great, let's do it, without any hesitation, without any doubt. You have to make it clear and digestible. Make it easy and digestible. Yeah. Again, simplicity is the genius. Do not complicate anything. Presentation, super simple, not 50 slides. 3, 4, 5 slides, as less text as possible, as much dialogue as possible. Yeah. And basically, you sell, you close through presence, through certainty, through genuine curiosity. So ethos and pathos speak to system 1, logos speaks to system 2. And the reason scripts fail is the right words come naturally. Yeah? Because you are listening actively. Because they're not like, these words are a reflection of what the prospect just told you, not the things that you learn or memorizing from some video or Instagram reel or some sales guy. Yeah, that's the idea. That's so important. Yeah. And on that note, yeah, 4 gentlemen, apply this right now. Yeah, literally, you can just apply it literally right now. And in your personal life, everywhere, yeah. And it's not just about this. There are many concepts that are very important in sales, yeah. And every single concept or every single understanding of the first principle will elevate your even small details 1% better, 1% better, 1% better, 1% better, yeah. These small details make you very good at sales, very persuasive, and your closing rate will skyrocket. Yeah. This is Socratic Sales. Be formless. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.